Listening, Part 1. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1. You will hear a phone conversation between the manager of a community centre and a woman who is inquiring about art classes in the centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Bramley Community Centre, how can I help?
Oh, hi. I'm calling about the art classes at the centre office. I had a quick look at your website. I think one of the classes is called something like Movement and Light.
That's right. The focus is on painting in the style of the French Impressionists.
Yes, I saw that in the description. But I've got a few questions if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, do I need to bring anything to the class or is everything supplied?
Not quite. What you'd need to do is get yourself some brushes. I'd suggest a range of them, in different sizes.
All right. Yes, I guess it would make sense to bring your own. I'll make a note of that.
And you know what the fee for the class is?
For one term, it's $170, isn't it?
That's right. But if you sign up for 2 terms, it actually works out cheaper.
How much would that be?
$285. And we do find that a lot of people sign up for a couple of terms. It's such a great class.
OK, I'll give it some thought. And that's on Monday evenings, isn't it?
Yes, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in room 15.
And who's the tutor?
The tutor? He's a local artist. You might have heard of him. Steve Ramdani.
Oh, possibly. How do you spell that surname?
It's R-A-M-D-H-A-N-I-E. Got that?
Yes, thanks. Now you've also got a class called Clay Basics. It's a pottery class, right?
Yes, that's right.
Do we get to use a pottery wheel?
Yes, you do.
Oh, great. But we'd be making something simple, I hope. I can't imagine producing a vase or anything with a handle.
No, in the first term, you'd just be producing 2 or 3 bowls. That means learning how to shape and glaze them.
Sounds great. I guess it would be a bit of a messy activity. You wouldn't want to wear your smart clothes, would you?
Best not to. I'd recommend wearing something old, that you didn't mind getting dirty.
Well, I have a shirt like that I could use. I'd just roll up the sleeves, I guess.
And the fee for that class is $180 per term.
All right.
And the class runs on Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Oh, hang on. I've got that wrong.
It's on a Thursday, isn't it?
Yes, my mistake. What else can I tell you? Oh, yes. The tutor's name is Teresa Clark. Her work's on display in reception here.
Oh, great. I'll have a look.
Yeah, if you've got time.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now the other class I thought looked interesting was sketching architecture.
Oh, yes. For that one, everyone goes down to the local park because it's surrounded by so many beautiful old buildings.
Oh, right. Like the old post office.
Well, I think you begin by drawing the library. There's a good view of it from the park, I believe.
OK, nice. Actually, come to think of it, I think I've seen the sketching class down in the park when I've driven past. Don't they all take a fold-up chair with them?
I believe so.
Is there anything else I ought to know?
Well, the people who do the class, they tend to make a sandwich for themselves and bring that along. So I'd recommend you do that too.
Good idea. I get grumpy when I'm hungry.
All right. That's $160 per term for that class, and it's on Fridays from 11 a.m. till 1.
So, if the classes are in the park, that's quite a big area. Where do we actually meet?
Good point. Everyone usually heads along just before 11 a.m, and they meet each other at the top of Victoria Street, at the Station Road end.
So, on the corner? Great. And the tutor is...
Annie Lee.
You know what? I'll have to think about the other two, but I'd definitely like to enrol for Annie's class. I'm happy to pay now.
In that case, you're going to need Annie's cell phone number in case you're running late or the class gets cancelled.
I see. OK, what's the number, please?
It's 021 785 6361. Just text her if there's a problem. Now, how would you like to pay? We can do cash or maybe...
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1. Listening, Part 2. You will hear the manager of a factory talking to office staff about renovation work at the factory complex. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say thank you for your patience for the last 6 months. As you know, all the office staff had to move to temporary offices while the renovation work at the factory complex was taking place. But finally, that work is finished and everyone can return to the factory complex and their new office space. We're hoping everything will go smoothly, but there's a couple of things we'll need you to do during your first week back. You'll be pleased to know that your files and folders have been placed at your desk, so there's no need for you to go hunting around for any records. A couple of people have asked whether their old pass will still work at the security gate, or will they need to get their photo done and update their personal details. I can assure you that the old pass will still get you through the gate, no problem. Once you've had a chance to settle into the new offices, please take the time to view a training video for the operating system we're now using. We think it's going to manage all our programs far more efficiently. Obviously, the sooner you can get this done, the better. Also for next week, because the renovations have meant a complete redesign of some of the company's buildings, you'll need to attend a session on things like what to do if you hear the fire alarm go off, and where to meet if you have to evacuate the buildings. We'll let you know as soon as we have a definite time for that. It's going to be a busy week for everyone, but hopefully the kind of challenge that can help bring the team together. We'll make a time for you to report back to me on Friday. All right. We've also taken some steps to improve the physical environment in your offices. Bigger windows mean that the offices are a lot brighter, and that's better for your eyes. Inside, we've replaced some dividing walls with coloured glass panels. They look great. We've also invested in some adjustable chairs. You can lower or raise them to whatever height feels right for you. What else? We've now got some quality insulation in the ceilings and walls that'll make everything a lot warmer. Also, another thing, we've set aside several rooms for project work. That will allow a team to get together around the same table. We feel that more opportunities for face-to-face discussion will benefit the whole company. So when you come next...
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
OK, so let's look at a plan of the factory complex and see how it's changed. You can see that the main entrance is at the top of the map. Ellerslie Road is on the left-hand side and the warehouse is at the bottom. OK, let's start with one of the new buildings. The conference centre, perhaps. If you look at the lower half of your plan, on the right, there are two long buildings that are parallel to each other. The conference centre is the one with a view of the river. Hopefully, that's something visitors to the factory complex will appreciate, especially on a sunny day when it's clear outside. Now, what about the new office space? As you know, the offices used to be in that large building right alongside Ellerslie Road, and that could get a bit noisy at times. So what we've done is move the office space further away from the road, into the building that directly joins on to reception. This should mean employees can benefit from a quieter working environment, as well as the other improvements I mentioned earlier. We also decided to move the stores building, so it could be a lot closer to the warehouse. So now, if you were going to enter the factory complex from the Ellerslie Road entrance, stores would be the building immediately on your left. The warehouse staff have already commented that having the stores here is much more convenient. Yes, I'm sure it's going to save a lot of time. Finance was another building that had to be relocated. They just didn't have enough space before. So you can see the main entrance on the plan, right? And below that is the roundabout. Then there's the road that goes from the roundabout directly to reception. Well, the finance building is about halfway along that road. On the plan, the factory is just above it. The cafe, just so you know, is in the same place as before. It's not ideally located for the factory workers, that's true, but it's not too far if you're heading down from reception or up from the warehouse. But what we've done is try to make the environment a bit more pleasant. So whereas before you looked straight from the cafe onto the large car park, now there's a line of trees separating them. I think you'll agree that this was a good decision. Putting in the trees, I mean. It was also necessary to relocate the IT department. Of course, for some of their work, they can do it remotely, but from time to time, the IT people do need to visit the different buildings around the factory complex. For that reason, we've given the IT department a more central location. It's that square building you see right in the centre of the plan, one of the closest buildings to the larger car park. Something I'd like to say about the car park, actually.
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 2.
Now turns to part 3. Part 3.
You will hear two students discussing their new course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 23. As you listen to the first part of the conversation, answer questions 21 to 23.
Hi, Kate. How did you like the first lecture?
Hi, Julie. You mean that lecture about brand identity?
Exactly. When our professor described how brand names are created.
As I understood, he'll teach us practical tips and techniques to create better brands. And what about course duration? I heard it's 5 weeks.
No, 5 weeks is without the final project. The total duration is 7 weeks.
Oh, I forgot about it. It's the first time I'll be doing a group project.
And I'm a bit nervous to work in a 5-people team.
I think it's going to be okay.
He was talking about the right marketing strategy. Did you hear that?
Yes, that was the most exciting part of the presentation. The key thing is to grab people's attention.
That's true.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions
24 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 24 to 30.
And how do you like the curriculum?
I think it's nice. It's great that we'll be learning marketing in detail, as I've always been interested in this subject.
Me too. And after that, we'll be training to design custom logos.
The professor told that the curriculum has been modified, and we won't learn design this year.
What a pity.
The same with product management. But you shouldn't worry, they just combined these 2 sections into a larger one called branding.
Then it's good. Moreover, they've added something called e-commerce this year.
It's a great alteration, and the course is kept up to date. Online trading is so popular now.
And after that, we'll learn advertising.
Yes, and also analytics.
Really? Won't analytics be replaced with customer attraction?
Yes, you're right. I forgot about that.
I think that's all. The professor also teaches a course called Business Strategies. So, we may take his other course next year.
Dear, and where is the next lecture?
It's in the big classroom on the ground floor.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Don't forget to take your last week assignment.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4.
You will hear a lecture about the Great Wall of China. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 35.
Perhaps the most recognizable symbol of China and its long and vivid history, the Great Wall of China is one of the most extensive construction projects ever completed. Somewhat ironically though, the one monument that China built to keep foreigners out is actually now the biggest tourist attraction in the country. Despite the initial purpose, the Great Wall never effectively prevented invaders from entering China. It came to function more as a psychological barrier between Chinese civilization and the world, and remains a powerful symbol of the country's enduring strength. Though the beginning of the Great Wall of China can be traced to the 3rd century BC, many of the fortifications included in the wall date from hundreds of years earlier, when China was divided into a number of individual kingdoms during the so-called Warring States period. Around 220 BC, Qin, the first emperor of a unified China, ordered that earlier fortifications between states be removed, and a number of existing walls along the northern border be joined into a single system that would extend for more than 10,000 li and protect China against attacks from the north. A li is about 1/3 of a mile, and that's where the monument's name came from. The original name for the Great Wall is Long Wall of 10,000 li, or simply the Long Wall. Though the wall is quite inspiring, it was never called the Great Wall in Chinese, and only foreign mistranslation with romantic overtones referred to it as Great or Big Wall. With the death of Qin and the fall of his dynasty, much of the Great Wall fell into disrepair. Much later, a series of frontier tribes seized control in northern China. The most powerful of these was the Northern Wei dynasty, which repaired and extended the existing wall in 390 AD to defend against attacks from other tribes. Despite its long history, the Great Wall of China as it exists today was constructed mainly during the mighty Ming dynasty, from 1368 to 1644. Under the strong hand of the Ming rulers, Chinese culture flourished, and the period saw an immense amount of construction in addition to the Great Wall, including bridges, temples, and pagodas. In earlier centuries, the wall held little importance for the Mongols as a military fortification, and mostly served to protect caravans traveling along the profitable trade routes. But during the Ming dynasty, the Great Wall was considered vital to the defense of the country. Before the use of bricks, the Great Wall was mainly built from stones, wood, and rammed earth. However, during the Ming dynasty, bricks were heavily used in many areas of the wall. The size and weight of the bricks made them easier to work with than earth and stone, so construction quickened. Additionally, bricks could bear more weight and endure better than earth and wood. But many western sections of the wall are constructed from mud, and thus are more susceptible to erosion. That's why in many locations the Great Wall is in disrepair. A report by the State Administration of Cultural Heritage states that almost a fifth of the wall has totally vanished. In places, the height of the wall has been reduced from more than 5 meters to less than 2 meters. And more than 60 kilometers of the wall in Gansu province may disappear in the next 20 years, due to frequent sandstorms. However, the state does its best to preserve and extensively renovate the Chinese wall, which makes a considerable figure upon the terrestrial globe. Due to its imposing sizes, the wall is often believed to be visible from the moon. But it's only a rumor. The width of the Great Wall, viewed from the moon, is about the same as that of a human hair, viewed from 2 miles away. In other words, to see the wall from the moon would require superhuman eyesight. Today, the monument attracts thousands of national and foreign tourists every day. In 1987, UNESCO designated the Great Wall a World Heritage Site. And now the Great Wall is generally recognized as one of the most impressive architectural feats in history.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.